Hello, this is Kristen Landis, and I'm your club president and president of the board of directors at Farmington Country Club. I'm very excited today to welcome you to the Westward phase. To give you a little bit of steps of how we're going to go about this video, I'm going to present to you how we got here, a little bit of the history of the process, and then I'm going to turn it over to the vice president and chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee, Court Nexon, and he's going to give you the exciting part, going through the different areas of the Westward phase, and then I'm going to circle back at the end and just wrap it up. So let's begin. So we had a very busy September. In September, the Strategic Planning Committee reviewed the Westward phase that was presented to them by the Master Plan Working Group. They unanimously approved the phase. It was then kicked to the Finance Committee, which fine-tuned their pencils and determined how we were going to pay for it, and then they unanimously approved a plan for paying for the phase. And then that was presented to the board of directors in a special meeting in the middle of September, at which time the entire phase was approved. So how did we get here? Many of you are aware of the 2027 plan. Back in 2012, 2013, the club decided at that point in time to think about what do we want to be and what do we want to look like when we turn 100. So back in the spring, the board of directors updated the mission statement. And what I want to highlight are a couple of things from the mission statement. First of all, that we're a full-service club, that we offer first-class facilities and exceptional services. And lastly, we take very seriously our job as stewards of our significant historic spaces. I've had the privilege of touring a number of clubs over the last 6 years that I've been on the board. And every time we come back to Farmington, all of us sit in amaze at the board and say, what a special place Farmington is, and what makes Farmington so special. One of those things is our historic spaces. What is a master plan? A master plan is a comprehensive guide growth that develops over time, and that's the most important thing about a master plan, is that it's evergreen. It's constantly evolving. This whole Westward phase wasn't decided overnight by just a group of people sitting in a room. It is a 5-year in the process phase that took place, and about 3 years of significant work determining what members want, getting feedback, committee meetings, over 130 meetings in general, member surveys. All these things went into developing what the Westward phase is. So we ask ourselves, are private clubs dying? No, they just need to evolve. And that's what Farmington has been doing ever since the 1930s. Just like a product life cycle, if you are at your peak at maturity, and at that point in time you decide to take a retrospective look at yourself and what you want to do in the future, it's already too late. And Farmington has been doing this since the 1930s. Here's a picture of Farmington back then, and you can obviously see that we've changed a lot over time. Back in 2012, 2013, when Farmington decided to look at what we want to look at when we're 100, 3 key factors played into this entire process. One of them is communication, that the groups that went into developing this phase would have active and interactive communication with our members. Secondly, transparency, that we would be as transparent as possible with regards to the process. And finally, and the most important, is member participation. Many of you have been involved over the years with committees and doing the surveys in determining what the club wants and what needs that we need to fulfill to provide the most valuable member experience. So what is essential to a club today? If any of you have served in committee service or just been around the club the last 5 years, you know that the 3 R's were developed back in 2013. These 3 things are looked at and weighed in on every decision that's made here at Farmington, both on the committee and board level. Those are retention, relevance, and recruitment. Retention is what we're doing going to fulfill the needs of our members and want them to come to Farmington and stay at Farmington. Are we being relevant to what members want and what people want in general at this time in the industry? And thirdly, recruitment is what we're doing going to attract and new members to want to come to Farmington. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the whole process. The Master Plan Working Group, many of you have heard about it, was developed back in 2013 as an advisory committee. This committee is comprised of myself, a number of top management, the strategic planning chair, club architects, the design team, and a number of other at-large members of the community. And they're responsible for boots on the ground. They do the nitty-gritty of figuring out what the members want and then coming up with a plan. They present that plan to the Strategic Planning Committee, which then fine-tunes it and tweaks it, and then they finally present that to the board for final approval. And we did this back with the Southside phase. We've done this again with the Westward phase. These are the guiding principles that were developed back in the Southside phase, and right now we're in the member validation phase. People are asking, why do we want to do this? The club's busy already. We have enough members. Why do we want to do something like this, this new phase? And the answer to that is that every year we lose about 105 members. That's due mainly to moving and death. Therefore, we need to stay relevant and also recruit new members every year to just maintain our status quo. So we need to bring about 45 resident and 60 non-resident members a year. The other thing that we deal with, and many of you know that, people these days are pulled in many different directions with their time, their resources, their energy. And so Farmington has to stay relevant and attractive to people to want to come and spend time here. I've been doing these presentations quite a bit over the last few years, and one of the things I said in the last round of these presentations was that we have over 400 restaurants in Charlottesville alone. So we need to be relevant to what people want. So many of you know about the Southside phase, and I hope you've been enjoying all the different facets of that phase. We want to show you a little video about the whole project. To be proud of. The Southside phase was a very successful project. Most of you know who've done construction in your own homes. It's very unusual to come on time and on budget, and we did that with the Southside phase. As you can see by the double and triple digits in usage that we have for the different areas of the Southside phase, it's been extremely successful and the members are enjoying it. So we have a lot to be proud of, not only with the Southside phase, but with our talented staff. We're considered an industry innovator and leader in the industry. Many of you know that we're a top 40 club in the nation. Westward phase to continuing the success that we've had over the last few years. I just want to talk a little bit about our current membership scenario right now. Currently, we have about 1,114 resident members and about 1,488 non-resident members. As you can see, we fully recovered from the downturn back in 2012. So we have quite a robust membership right now. And the other thing that we have to be proud of now is that we're in a very strong financial position. Back in 2011, Farmington was generating about $14 million in operating revenue. Currently in 2018, we're at about $21 million in revenue. So what's next? This is the exciting part, and I'm going to turn it over to Court to explain the different facets of the Westward phase.
So thank you, Kristen, and thank you to the member who's taking the time to go through this presentation. My name is Court Nexon. As Kristen said, I chair the Strategic Planning Committee. I sit on the board, and prior to the Strategic Planning Committee, I chaired the Membership Committee for 3 years. What I'm going to take you through next, I joke, I can spend 3 minutes on it, or I could spend 3 hours. We're going to take about 20 minutes to walk you through every single phase or aspect of this Westward plan. What I want to start with is saying there's a difference between the why and what. As many people see this for the first time, they initially gravitate towards what is that building, what's going to be in there, what am I going to use, what will I utilize the least, and what we'd encourage you to do, and we know it's difficult, is try not to get lost in the weeds or focus on small details, but take a step back and try to understand why are we doing this as a club and why do we need to do this as a club. So when you look at the timeline, the history of Farmington, as we approach our 100th anniversary, we've constantly evolved. Ever since the 1930s, Farmington has continuously over the decades evolved and added new projects and exciting projects, and that's where we're heading as we approach 2027. A lot of committee members give us the feedback that they understand how exhaustive this process has been, and one of the difficulties that the board and the committees face is conveying to the membership just how exhaustive this process has been. When you look at the various inputs and ways we've collected data over the past 5+ years, it has been nothing but exhaustive. We have gone through well over 100 focus group, 100 meetings. We've done 2 different surveys. We looked at industry trends. We've used data analytics to kind of go through. And at the end of the day, this project in the simplest form is exactly what our membership has asked for over and over again over the past few years. And so these are the priority areas that we've heard over and over from our membership. These 6 areas is what we have been tasked with over the past few years of how do you achieve a plan that satisfies all of these member needs? How do you achieve a plan that's both fiscally conservative and also conservative in a sense from a construction and timing standpoint? And we are now extremely excited to share this updated plan with you. As I'm about to show you the different master plan updates over the past few years, you must remember that, again, a master plan is a concept. It's boxes on a page. It is trying to get ideas down to then execute through a vote to then actually move forward in construction. So if you look at 2013, this is the master plan from 2013. I can't point to the different buildings, but what you will notice is that some of these were built. At the bottom left, the children's place was built. The new grill was enhanced. Above the grill, though, we did not add that new fitness area, a new tennis headquarters area. And then on the far right of the screen, you'll notice cottages down the north side. A prime example of the trade-offs and what we like to call the whack-a-mole is if you were to build those guest cottages, for example, you would never again be able to have fireworks for the 4th of July. If you were to enhance the fitness center in that space, you would cannibalize the existing courtyard. You would also run into that south gallery of hotel rooms and, again, cannibalize hotel rooms. So as you can see, Farmington's both fortunate to have some space on campus, but also we're unfortunate that it's not just an open field. And so, again, as we walk you through the various projects, we want to try to give you a sense of the color and the exhaustive process that we went through to try to best come up with an updated master plan. So what you will see now is the updated master plan. This is the 2018 conceptual plan that was unanimously approved by the Strategic Planning Committee, by the Finance Committee, and by the board. This is what we're going to walk through project by project over the next 10 to 15 minutes. As you come up Farmington Drive, at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice a proposed new guest cottage. You will notice an enhanced parking area where the warm-up range is. As you come up Tennis Drive, you will notice a new outdoor pavilion and green space where the current putting green is. You will notice a new building in the tennis area. This will be the new tennis headquarters, and there'll also be fitness studios. Behind tennis, you have a proposed new indoor tennis building. You also have existing maintenance laundry that we'll talk about and show you images of how we're going to screen that. You also have the main kitchen, a proposed new main kitchen with infrastructure, and you also have a loading dock and generator there behind the kitchen. Last, but certainly not least, not on this map, but it's highlighted in the upper right, we will complete enhanced locker room additions. We'll spend $500,000 on enhancements to both ladies and men's locker rooms, and we're also going to air condition the existing indoor tennis, and we'll touch upon those features as well. So to kind of get into each project, when you look at the guest rooms, the proposed guest cottage, as you come up Farmington Drive, is right there. And when you look at the data behind guest rooms, we currently have 40 guest rooms today. At our peak, we had 50 guest rooms. As you can imagine, it is the #1 request from our non-resident members, but also our resident members heavily utilize guest rooms for their families and friends. On weekends, it's essentially booked 100% of the time. And when you look at Monday through Sunday, Farmington's operating almost 70% occupancy, which is phenomenal for a club. So again, we're looking at adding 8 additional guest rooms via this cottage. I'll show you the floor plan in a moment. This allows for both individual rooms to be booked, but also allows for larger groups to potentially either take over the entire cottage and or a floor of this proposed 1.5-story cottage. This is a digital rendering to show you more the size and scale of the proposed guest cottage. The top picture shows the guest cottage in comparison to the cart barn. The bottom picture shows you the guest cottage in comparison to the old existing manager's cottage. 1.5-story building, if you think about where it is on the property, it kind of bleeds into the existing landscape in a sense that the pool house, locker room, and children's place is a 2-story building. And so this cottage will naturally ease itself into the campus, very similar to the Southside Gallery rooms and how they mask the 2-story fitness center. When you look at the floor plan, this is the ground level. There are 4 guest rooms. There's a common sitting area, kitchenette, and again, these rooms can be booked individually, so 4 different people could stay in these rooms, and or a family or group could reserve all 4 and stay in it together. Upstairs, the second floor is very similar, 4 guest rooms in each corner. The center sitting area may need to be used for housekeeping and linens, but also could be another common area. And again, these 4 rooms can be booked individually and or taken over by one family or one group. Now we're going to talk about fitness, locker, and recreation. As Kristen noted, we were actually ranked as a top 40 club, which is extremely phenomenal for a club that sits in Charlottesville, Virginia. We are one of the leaders in the club industry, and I'd say one of the things that is least top 40 or least leading club standards is our current locker room setup. To show you the game of trade-offs, in prior plans, we looked at building a brand new locker room headquarters or locker room building. This would have ended up going on the current day warm-up range. As you look at the game of trade-offs, what we are intending to do is to do a significant restoration or renovation to the existing locker rooms for both women's and men's. When you look at the fitness and recreation area, when you think about the indoor tennis today, we are going to air condition this space, and now you can think of it as either a flex space or almost a field house. The existing tennis courts, the 3 courts will stay. They're being lined for pickleball. You can also potentially play basketball or indoor lacrosse. You could do volleyball. Again, you now have a 365-day field house that allows for additional programming for all ages, but especially what we call the tweens, ages 6 to call it 15, who have phased out of the children's place and really don't have a place at the club to call home and or to do year-round programming. When you look at outdoor recreation, the trends in the industry and also what we've heard from members is more and more social gathering spaces outside. If you think about what we've done on the north side with the terrace, what we are proposing where the current day putting green is an outdoor recreation pavilion that allows for various different types of outdoor lawn sports. When you look at the rendering, this is a digital rendering of what this outdoor pavilion would look like. If you were sitting on the patio of the grill right now, you'd be looking across Tennis Road. That's the existing putting green, and what this pavilion building allows, it provides men's and ladies' restrooms. To the left of this building are currently 4 outdoor tennis courts. We are going to be adding 2 tennis courts there. So those 6 tennis courts will now have a full-service bathroom. This also allows for both the tennis staff, the golf staff, and other club events to not have to put down and take down tents, but you now have a permanent structure for almost year-round programming. When you look at fitness history, this is a double data chart. The green line are actually the number of classes, and the trend at Farmington and the demands are more classes and more classroom space. So what we're proposing, and we'll get into it, is there's a tennis headquarter building with fitness studios, with new fitness studios, and also a new indoor tennis complex. The fitness studios will come in the next couple slides, but first I'll touch upon tennis. So in this enhancement, we are going to add 4 additional indoor tennis courts, which will walk you through that building. We will have 13 outdoor courts. We're going to enhance the locker rooms, the bathrooms, and the pro shop for tennis. Paddle and pickleball have both become so popular. We're going to add a 4th paddle court. We're going to reorient those given the way the sun rises and sets. Some of you may not realize tennis courts 5 and 6 actually are not regulation-sized tennis courts. We've now acquired the property that these courts adjoin, and we can now take these courts to regulation. And again, certainly last but not least, we are going to add 3 brand new fitness classrooms to this building that I'll walk you through in a minute. When you look at total tennis play, the joke is the worst thing Joe Kren did was hire Ronnie Haas. Ronnie has transformed our tennis program. You look at 70 of the past 100 members, they play tennis. Tennis programming, the number of adults and youth playing tennis is truly a testament to Ronnie and his wonderful staff. But when you look at the indoor tennis play, similar numbers, roughly 70 of the past 100 members are utilizing indoor tennis. And you see this chart and you may say it's stagnated. The growth has not stagnated. Our capacity, our indoor capacity has hit maximum capacity. It's stagnated. We simply cannot add any more indoor court reservations. And again, why are we doing this plan? One of the reasons is building for the current and future needs of our tennis program. This is a digital rendering of the proposed new tennis headquarters and fitness studios. As you look at this image, it's difficult to see, but this building is not going to be on the road. This doesn't sit immediately on Tennis Road. This is sitting back where the current day tennis shop is. If you think about the tennis courts and the outdoor pavilion, all of those stay in front of this building. We will tear down the existing tennis shop, and this will be a new enhanced tennis building, tennis headquarters along with fitness studios. When you look at the ground floor, and I'm going to walk you through the floor plan, your fitness studios are all in the bottom level, and up above you have new locker rooms for men and women, day lockers for men and women, and you also have your tennis shop and tennis offices. Again, just another angle of this proposed building. The top is looking from fitness. To the left, you'll see that proposed tennis headquarters. At that top picture, the building to the right is your maintenance laundry. We will skin that to tie it in with the same look and feel. And then the bottom image is looking from the employee parking lot up, looking at this new tennis headquarter building, and you also see a piece of the maintenance and laundry. The floor plan. This is the floor plan for the lower level of this building. There'll be 3 new fitness classrooms. We are going to be going from 1 fitness classroom to now having 4 fitness classrooms. There's also an elevator in this building, and again, significantly enhanced fitness studio space. To give you some color on the trade-offs, we looked at going on the 2nd floor of the existing fitness center. Could you build fitness classroom space over the boiler? Could you go into the courtyard? Again, when you look at the game of trade-off, this was the most palatable, best use of dollar, highest return on investment to build the fitness classrooms in this new building. As you move upstairs, the beauty of this building, when you think about the topography of the land back at this part of the property, the building is going to be built into that hillside. It's a 1-story building. When you look from Tennis Road, from the back behind the building, it's 2 stories. But that first floor, as you enter from ground level, you'll come in through the main doors. There's a social gathering sitting area. To the left is your tennis pro shop and your tennis offices. To the right are brand new men's and women's locker rooms. There'll be showers and restrooms in here. There will be lockers. There'll be day lockers to allow for greater utilization and turnover. But the beauty of this locker room is it should alleviate some of the existing capacity constraints on the fitness locker rooms for both men and women. Off the back of this building, you have a porch that overlooks the tennis courts, the indoor tennis building, and also to the left overlooks the 4 paddle courts. This is a digital rendering of the indoor tennis building. As you walk out of the new fitness studios and you come across those tennis courts, you can walk straight into the new indoor tennis building. You can also enter this from the parking lot level, and I'll show you a floor plan right now. This is the floor plan of indoor tennis. There'll be 4 new tennis courts in here. There'll be restrooms. There'll be a stairwell. The second floor will have a mezzanine that overlooks all 4 courts and allows for social gathering and an additional area for events. I joke this is Ronnie Haas's watercolor. It's expensive to get various renderings or watercolors. We know how important it is to get this building right. What we've tried to do with the feedback to our architects on this building is we want this similar look and feel of the existing South Gallery, that Farmington look and feel. As you'll notice, there's an overhanging porch. We have tried to mask the size of this building as best as possible. The beauty of the topography of this part of the property is this building is built into that hillside. And so what is a large structure will actually be masked pretty well by that hillside. And when you look at a different angle, if you were out on the north side and you look dead left, you will be able to see some of this building, but a lot of it will be screened by the existing trees and shrubbery. I like to call these current conditions. These are images of current day conditions. So for men's and women's tennis, there's 1 bathroom per gender. You can see there's toilet paper stacked in the corners. There's mouthwash on top of the toilets. We had over 300 participate in the member guests, and for a top 40 club, we simply need better facilities than what we currently have. This is current day tennis maintenance. When they have to work on anything, they have to move golf carts out, they have to move equipment out just to have enough space to work. As part of the enhanced new tennis headquarters, fitness studios, and maintenance laundry, there'll be additional tennis maintenance space to allow them just to have a better work area and have a greater optimization and utilization for their space. So now we'll talk about clubhouse infrastructure and kitchen. We recognize the kitchen has been on the agenda for decades now. It is the #1 priority area, and we recognize how important that is. To take you through that game of trade-offs again and to show you some color, the feedback we heard from the membership was do not touch the existing main dining room, the Marshall Wells dining room. So if you can't build in that dining room, you have to build the new kitchen outside those windows and outside that space. We'll walk you through some of those renderings, but again, the kitchen is one of the most important areas, and if the vote passes, truly the kitchen starts on day 1, but you need to recognize that there are weddings and banquets that have been booked 16 to 18 months in advance. If the vote passes, we will then stop taking bookings. We'll start going through the county approvals. You'll start identifying your general contractor, and the kitchen will start on day 1, but you probably won't see a shovel in the ground until at least likely 2020. So what do you get with the kitchen and infrastructure? There's a lot as part of this project, but when again you think about why are we doing this plan, Chef Mike and his team, extremely talented from a culinary aspect. We must retain and attract talented staff. They need better conditions. I'll show you some of the pictures of the kitchen. But we need to retain and attract top staff. I'll also show you how we go about purchasing food. We can't purchase in bulk. We can't have a wine futures program due to our lack of storage. And then also we will have the opportunity to put a elevator in the main house to touch all 3 floors and a full house generator. So there's a lot of added benefits with the kitchen, but also with the main house infrastructure. Current conditions. This is actually the entire storage facility for a over $5.5 million F&B program. Some of you have more storage at your own home than this. The bottom right picture is all of our alcohol and wine storage. And again, we are not able to buy in bulk. We don't get cost savings. We truly have to have deliveries every single day at this club because we cannot store and or buy in bulk. This is kitchen dishwashing. What we're trying to capture here is that if there's an event going on in the main dining room, the kitchen is not allowed to wash dishes because of the noise. They have to stack those blue crates up and around all the different areas at which they work. If you want to talk about an inefficient process, this kind of captures it in a nutshell, where our staff has to stay later, an event has to finish for them to even begin washing dishes. And again, it's just not adequate conditions for our employees in our kitchen. Looking at dry goods, this picture is just to show you this is the entire dry goods storage for all of the club. When you look at the pastry shop storage, the storage actually doubles as her office. You can see her chair in the picture on the right. She has to pull that out to even get in there to do work. The pastry shop has to coordinate with various banquets on who gets to utilize that space. And again, it's very inefficient for our kitchen staff to basically have to coordinate who gets to use which tools in which space throughout the day. Looking at our banquet prep area, again, it's just to show you the space constraints and how they truly work magic in the current day kitchen. The top right photo is to show you them actually plating and prepping a banquet for the main ballroom in the main dining room, just given the lack of space in the kitchen. When you look at the loading dock, those are 2 refrigerators. Those are not supposed to be outside, but we don't have enough space to put them indoors. And as part of this proposed plan, as we will enhance the loading dock, we will be able to screen and cover the dumpsters, and you'll be able to, A, have those big trucks that come every single day, come less frequently, and be able to get in and out of that space much more effectively. When you look at the employee break room, we have 450 employees at the club. A lot of us would argue it's the most special aspect of the club, yet we kind of give them second-class conditions. This is their entire break room for their meals. It becomes so congested that we've started sending golf maintenance, their lunch, down to the golf maintenance headquarters to alleviate some of that. But again, getting this right for our employees is mission critical, and it's part of this updated kitchen and infrastructure. Employee locker rooms, that is the locker room. Believe it or not, it is unisex. They do not have their own changing areas, and there are 3 ladies' toilets and 2 men's toilets and 2 urinals for 450 employees at the club. Again, to show you more kind of the sizing and scale, the top photo is looking from tennis into admin. Essentially, everything to the right of the main clubhouse structure is the proposed new kitchen. We are essentially infilling the area behind the trees. You also see the enhanced loading dock area. The bottom photo is looking from fitness center into the side of that proposed new kitchen. And what we're trying to highlight is we heard loud and clear not to block the existing guest room windows on the 2nd floor. The proposed new kitchen will not block those windows. Now we're going to talk about parking. We recognize when Farmington is kind of at its busiest, parking can become an issue. What we're proposing is the existing warm-up range. We're going to take the top of the warm-up range and add 30 new parking spaces. This will take the warm-up range from a little more than 250 yards down to over 200 yards. But remember that those are limited flight golf balls, so not really any impact to the warm-up range. To give you some color of the trade-offs and what we studied, we looked at decked parking, we looked at underground parking, we studied, do you want to continually put more spaces out into the warm-up range? We recognize that this might not satisfy every single need on the busiest days, but 30 additional spaces is much needed. In conjunction, we are studying, are there different ways to move employee parking? Could you potentially move some of that down to where golf maintenance is? That is ongoing every single day at the club. When you look at golf, what we're going to talk about is this new enhanced putting green. The existing putting green area will get the outdoor pavilion area. That green area will stay for various lawn games and putting, but we'll add a new enhanced putting green down by the warm-up range. What this allows for Rob McNamara and his staff is a much more streamlined starting experience. When you think about where the carts are staged for different events, you have the warm-up range and you'll have this new enhanced putting green in that area. So golf will maintain the warm-up range. When you talk about the games of trade-offs, prior master plans looked at utilizing the warm-up range. We heard from members not to take that space. And so we've maintained the warm-up range. We'll add an enhanced putting green, enhanced locker rooms, a first tee social gathering area on that outdoor pavilion. And then exciting for golfers, separate from the Westward phase, but the board unanimously approved it. Golf now has an updated master plan that will be kind of run in tandem with the Westward phase of a how do you look at the main course looking out over the next 10 and 20 years. So again, these are the priorities, once again, that we heard over and over again through an exhaustive process. It was strategic planning, the finance and the board's job. How do you get these priorities and create a palatable plan? We're extremely excited by this plan. Again, we encourage you. There's always little details that may or may not sit well with you, but on the whole, we think this plan is phenomenal. We think it's the right next step for Farmington. And again, it's not to necessarily grow membership. It is to satisfy our current members and also to attract those new members that we need every single year. And with that, I'm now going to take you through the bigger question of how do you pay for this? So the finance committee saw a roughly 40-page plus deck and really spent a lot of time studying this. I'm going to try to cover it and a handful of slides. And again, we recognize you may have questions. Given that this is a recording, we encourage you to send an email into the Westward Phase, the 2027 email address, and someone will respond as soon as possible. So feel free to email questions. So when you look at the total list, there's a lot of projects in this Westward Phase. This is the total budget. There are conservative cost estimates, there are overages and allotted in this, but what we believe, like the South Side Phase, we are looking at $22.1 million. The same process, the same costing estimates that we did in the South Side Phase have been used for the Westward, and we feel very confident that this number is extremely accurate. So when you look at our current cash flow and our current balance sheet, in 2011, the club was generating $1.4 million. Today, we're generating over $3 million in cash. A true testament to Julie Brown, to Joe Crin, and the rest of the staff. The balance sheet has been transformed in the past years through better practices, through balanced budgets. It's phenomenal where this club has come in the matter of 5 or 6 years to truly have one of the strongest balance sheets in the industry. So if I can give you one slide or kind of make you circle one slide, this slide is in the mailer, but I think it's one of the most important slides. I can't reiterate enough, there's no member assessment, there's no assessment, there's no assessment as part of the Westward Phase. There's also no change in annual capital spending. We recognize how important it is to maintain our existing infrastructure and the various CapEx. So no part of this plan is delaying or putting off annual capital spending. There's also no significant changes in operations of the club. There's some net positives and net negatives when you think about just from a food buying standpoint. There's real ROI enhancement from the kitchen. And again, you're not adding that much more from an operations standpoint. The modularity of this plan, the strategic planning committee, the board, the finance committee, the modularity of this is truly one of the cornerstones. You methodically will go along with different projects and have built-in checkpoints for the finance committee and the board. And so there's no way to kind of start this plan and kind of be stuck or bloated with it. Based on economic conditions, the club, the board, the finance committee can either speed up or slow down this Westward Phase. So when you really look at where's the money coming from, can we afford it? Do we maintain our financial strength and financial ratios? And what would our debt payment look like? In order to do this plan, and we think about why are we doing this, we need these facilities today. We needed them yesterday. If we do not fund this through some portion of debt, you would simply delay this project another 10 or 20 years. And so what would it look like to have debt payment or debt structure as part of this project? Farmington has two different mechanisms for cash flow. On the left, you will see that membership dues, your monthly dues, and your usage when you think about renting a golf cart or buying a burger, all that funds our operations, our annual operations. The Westward Phase and master planning projects are funded in separate buckets. They are funded through our initiation fees, through our capital charges, and through depreciation. And I'm going to walk you through next the different mechanisms of how the finance committee and the board unanimously believe we can fund this project. So there's 4 sources of funding. The first is initiation fees. Farmington currently brings in on average $1.2 million a year in initiation fees. The model in this scenario, we shocked the model for the worst possible economic recession or downturn that we've experienced, and we'd still bring in $500,000 a year in initiation fees. As you'll see in the bottom left of this screen, as I go through it, it kind of starts adding up the numbers, and I'll circle back to this. When you look at the capital charge, our capital charge generates $1.3 million a year for the club annually. Right now, it's $75 a month. In a worst case scenario, even if we lost a significant amount of members, that capital charge would still generate $1.2 million. The capital charge is the most sound component for this funding mechanism, and as one finance committee member said, it is the shoulders at which this plan stands on. When you look at annual capital spending, our model and our assumptions account for annual capital spending. We will continue to spend annual dollars on the main house, on the golf course, on various annual operating needs. The model assumes $2.5 million, which is conservative. This year alone, we probably won't even break over that $2 million number. And in a worst case scenario, the model assumes 1.5. Again, conservative numbers as part of the funding. And last but not least, depreciation. The club, as a best practice, funds depreciation The model assumes $1.5 million a year. We actually fund more than that on an annual basis, but to be conservative, we used conservative numbers. And so at the end of the day, all these add up in that bottom left kind of running tablet to say, estimated annual year, we will have $1.5 million for debt service. In an absolute worst case scenario, we would still have $1 million a year for debt service. So when you look at the different phasing scenarios and what a loan balance would look like to fund this project, everything starts on day one when the vote passes. But given county regulations to get construction drawings and general contractors, different projects will be finished at different points. Your cleaner or quicker projects like the cottages and the parking and the pavilion will probably be finished first. You'll notice the loan balance is relatively small in the early years. The three most difficult or biggest projects are your kitchen and infrastructure, your indoor tennis, and your tennis headquarters. Those three will start on day one, but given the lead time for each of those will be finished around 2020 to 2024. And as you see, the loan balance towards the end of the project will get up closer to $11.5 million. But again, it's very conservative in a sense that it's a modular project. And as you're going forward, you can stop construction or stop the future project at any point in time. And if the economy then picks back up, then you could restart the project. So again, the beauty, there are checkpoints and there's modularity throughout the entire project. So when you look at debt capacity, the beauty of that $1.5 million a year, or worst case scenario, $1 million a year, is that we can easily repay a $11.5 million loan. We could pay it as quick as 10 years, or we could pay it as slow as 20 years. The club will have the flexibility to pay it based on economic conditions and also what the club is generating from a cash standpoint. But the whole point of this slide is even in an economic downturn, the club would be able to fund annual capital spending and they'd be able to fund and pay for the Westward phase. So I know that was a lot of talking. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen Landis. Again, we just want to say thank you for taking the time, and please feel free to email with any questions you may have.
Thank you, Court. As you can see from the calendar, we're into, right now we're into October. This evening we're having our gallery presentation. So right now the vote opened on October 15th. It will remain open until November 12th is when the voting will close, and we will announce at 6 o'clock that evening the results of the vote. This is the motion that actually went before the Board of Directors back in September. I just want to highlight again that it was a unanimous recommendation by both the Strategic Planning Committee and the Finance Committee, and then also by the Board of Directors. They approved the Westward phase to cost an estimated total of $22 million. It includes all of the projects that Court just outlined to you. Of course, it's subject to the vote of the membership. You, the members, own the club, so it is subject to your approval. The Finance Committee's cash flow model and analysis reflects the capacity to fund this project through debt service deriving from initiation fees, an excess capital charge, and funded depreciation only after annual capital spending, which, as Court spoke to you about, our yearly money that we spend on the club does not change because of the Westward phase. There will be no member assessment proposed at any point in time, and the maximum debt levels are not to exceed $12 million. Again, Court and I know that we've thrown a lot at you tonight. This is a brief summary. If you take anything away from tonight, you know that this is a process that is 5 years in the making. As Court said, it has involved countless meetings, countless member input and feedback, member surveys. It takes into account the 3 R's, all with the thought of what do we want to look like when we're at 100? What do we want to do to enhance our member experience, to satisfy the needs that our members want? You, the members, told us that these were the things that you wanted in the club, and they're all encompassed in the Westward phase. It again had the unanimous approval of the Strategic Planning Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Board of Directors. And the most important thing to highlight that it is sequential, it is modular, it is a very conservative, measured risk. At any point in time, it can stop or go faster, depending on how the club feels, depending on the how the membership feels at that point in time. The real work on if this project passes begins on November 13th. For the Strategic Planning Committee, the Board, and the Finance Committee will be watchdogging this project every step of the way. We don't want to tell you how to vote. We hope you're excited about the Westward phase and that you support it. But the one thing I do want to say to you that it is very important that you vote. It is a Herculean task to get members out to vote. We need a quorum in order for it to be a valid vote. That it means that it needs to be 558 people need to vote. So there are a number of ways that you can vote. You can either vote online. There is a button that you can press that has the proxy that you can fill out, or if you feel more comfortable voting in person, there are ballot boxes at the tennis facility, at the fitness facility, in the grill, and also by admin. I also urge you, if you have multiple people in your family, to ascertain who the member is in the family, because only the member can vote. That is the only way you'll have a valid vote, and of course we want everyone's voices to be heard. So again, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. It's a lot that we've thrown at you. If you have any questions, you can email farmington2027@fccva.com, and your questions will be answered very quickly. So Court and I thank you again, and hope you enjoyed listening about the Westward phase.